Hi, this is Mr. SafeHandZ coming to you from Safe House Wellness. Today on this podcast, we'll be looking at recovery. When you leave a rehabilitation center, you start the process of recovery. Recovery, by definition, is when a person has accepted that they have an addiction problem and are continually doing the work necessary to stay sober and maintain one's sobriety. This is a product of AA's first step, and there are 12 steps in the AA program. The first step, it says that we admitted we were powerless over alcohol or drugs and that our lives had become unmanageable. So looking at step one, we have to be able to maintain recovery. We admit that we are powerless and that our lives, many aspects of our lives, perhaps all of our aspects of our lives, had become unmanageable. We all have defense mechanisms we use to not accept the first step in the AA 12-step program. One of the main defense mechanisms that we as alcoholics and addicts embrace or take up is a defense mechanism called denial. And denial is one of the first and ways that our mind tricks us into believing that we don't have a problem. And thus, we don't enter into a rehabilitation center, or we don't seek any treatment or help. And denial can take many forms. One of the basic forms, there are 8 basic types of denial. The first that we tend to gravitate towards in society at large is called absolute denial. And absolute denial is simply when a member of our family or our friends or our close associates, perhaps at work as well, comes and immediately confronts you about your usage or drinking, perhaps thinking that you're drinking too much or that you're using in inappropriate times and places. And our denial mechanism at this moment kicks in and simply rejects the claim from the other person. So absolute denial takes the form basically of saying to somebody, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't had any drinks today. You have the confidence of having Listerine or some kind of mouthwash or perfume or aftershave on, and you can confidently say, I don't know what you're talking about. You simply outright deny the fact to the other people that are trying to challenge you. You simply deny the fact that you've drank more than perhaps you should have, or even anything if you're going to work per se. So absolute denial is simply you saying to those close to you, I have no problem and I don't know what you're talking about. I did not drink today, period. And they'll say, you're lying. And you say, no, I'm not lying. I don't know what you're talking about. And you want the conversation to go away. So that's called absolute denial. And that's usually one of the first things that we do as alcoholics and addicts. The second form that denial can take is called avoidance. And this is basically when you think to yourself, I'll talk about anything except my drinking. And so this can take many forms. One of the common forms is it's a form of diversion. Your family might bring up the topic of, or your coworkers or somebody at the office might bring up the topic of alcohol. And so-and-so had so many drinks and this and that, and they're making fun. And you're not comfortable with the conversational topic at hand, so you'll switch the topic perhaps, or avoid the topic, and change it to maybe a sporting event. You'll say, how did MS Dhoni do at the cricket game last night? To try and change the conversation so the conversation doesn't revolve around people's alcohol or drug intake. And you try to avoid conversations that people bring up that have to do with alcohol and drugs. And that's avoidance. So you're changing the nature of the conversations of those around you, so that because it's somewhat uncomfortable for you to discuss these in a public or a private setting with those you love. The third and related form of denial that denial can take is minimizing. And simply stated, this is when you may have had 6 drinks at a party, but somebody says, sir, you should slow down. You're drinking too much perhaps. And you say, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm just sipping a couple of beers. It's no big deal. Look, everybody else is drinking a lot, and I'm just drinking a few pegs here and there, and so you minimize. You say, relax, don't worry about it. I'm in control, as you can see, and a few beers is not really that much of a problem. And along these lines, the fourth form of denial, the fourth form that denial can take is comparing. And minimizing is related to that in the sense that you see somebody next door to you, Rahul or John or somebody at the table next to you, and he's had 10 beers, and you count your 4 or 5. And you think, I'm not drinking as much as him. He's the one that might have the problem. I don't. And that's minimizing, but also in comparison to somebody else. So perhaps you think that you're okay because somebody else is worse, and that is worse off. And that's a dangerous form of denial that also prevents your maintaining or gaining access to the stage of recovery that you need to be in. So we've looked at absolute denial, avoidance, minimizing, and comparing. Now, one of the main forms also that denial can take, and which I personally use a lot, is rationalizing. And this is when you try and explain away the problems due to what you think at the time is rational thought. And this can take very simple forms of deceit and denial, but also complex. You can try and make it more, and your mind will try and make it more complex. Well, for example, sometimes you'll be sitting at home, or I will be sitting at home, and it's a rainy day, and you think, it's raining out today, I can't go jogging, I'm in such a mood, perhaps I'll have a few drinks today. And so your mind is tricking yourself into thinking, rainy day, and I associate a rainy day with I can laze around the house and have a couple pegs in the morning even, because why? Well, it's raining today. It's a down day, so I'm going to take my time off as well. Now, the ironic thing here is that on a beautiful, beautiful sunny day, your mind will think, it's a sunny day, and you think beach, and then you associate beach with perhaps beer. And so some people will say, today's a sunny day, I'm in a good mood, and you'll have celebrational drinks instead of that it's a rainy day. So what you have is a human being basically who's using the weather or rationalizing the climate or whatever you want to rationalize, and then you start to think, it's okay for me to drink today, regardless of whether it's raining or it's sunny or whatever, even cloudy. So this is rationalization at its best. And it's also, I know you realize that you have a problem, but your brain at this point is playing tricks on you. It's trying to make it logical for you to drink. The normal means that this form of denial that is rationalizing is, I just had a really, really, really tough day at work. Consequently, when you get home from work, you feel that you want to have a peg or two of whiskey or a couple of beers to either, whether you want to see it as celebratory, that is, I celebrate that I worked really hard and did a good job today, so you reward yourself with alcohol immediately after work. Another form of denial that one of the last we'll talk about today. And manipulation is simply, it's simply using those around you, using blame to a certain extent, but manipulating the person that you're with and the situation and the circumstances with the person that you're with in such a way as to allow you to drink. In other words, you as a human being are manipulating the situation at hand, and that was just one example. You're manipulating the situation at hand so that you can avail yourself of a drink, or you can go out of whoever it is that you're there with and use, whether it's drinking or using. And that's called manipulation. So basically, to review just briefly, denial is one of the greatest hindrances to getting into recovery, or for any person to realize and accept that they do have some kind of issue with alcohol and or drugs. And denial, as I said and I've mentioned, it can take many forms. The absolute or simple version of denial, where you simply say, no, I don't know what you're talking about. You plead ignorance, basically. Avoidance, that is, you avoid the topics of alcohol and drugs between you and your friends. Minimizing, again, and rationalizing, giving yourself logical explanations where your mind tricks yourself into believing them as well, and others. Manipulating other people, blaming other people, comparing yourself to other people. And basically, this denial leads to relapse, which is something, if you've gone through rehab or if you've been in an AA program and you've done working with the steps, this can also it can come back, these forms of denial, and it can lead to something called relapse, which is something I'll talk about perhaps in my next session. And these are this is a basic fundamental building block, the concept of denial, because it's experienced by all addicts and alcoholics wherever they may be. And consequently, it's one of the fundamental problems, both psychological and physically, that we tackle in places like SafeHandZ in Delhi, where they look at these forms of denial and try and break them down so as to help the person maintain their sobriety after they leave rehabilitation. Thank you. Mr. SafeHandZ signing out.